These horrible acts were committed in the name of science. Terrible experiments performed in the United States. We're looking at examples of human experimentation executed in the US that were harmful to their test subjects. Project MKUltra. Officially sanctioned in 1953 and backed by the CIA, this series of experiments studied the effect of mind control with methods like hypnosis, drugs, isolation, and sensory deprivation used to modify human behavior.
This is what they did. They did chemicals, they did biologicals, they did disguises, they did electronics, secret writing, and the like.
The CIA enlisted the help of prisons, hospitals, and more than 40 universities to perform experiments on subjects without their knowledge. In one of these sub-projects, Operation Midnight Climax, prostitutes who were secretly working for the CIA gave clients LSD. And while these men were under the influence, they were spied on through a one-way mirror. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all records related to MKUltra, but subsequent investigations led by Senator Frank Church and Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, in addition to 20,000 records recovered in 1977, were able to shed light on these activities. The Milgram Experiment. Fascinated by what motivated Nazi officers to commit atrocities during World War II, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram set up an experiment to see just how far Americans would go before their conscience stopped them. In the 1960s experiment, a teacher would read questions to a learner, who was actually an actor pretending to participate in the study. When the learner got an answer wrong, the teacher gave what he believed to be a real electric shock, progressing in 15-volt increments up to 450 volts. The teachers objected. They were forced to administer it regardless. After being assured that they would be free of all responsibility, the teacher typically complied, even when the learner screamed in agony.
That's wrong. 225 volts.
Ow! Take it off! I've had enough of this!
2/3 of the 40 test subjects went all the way to 450 volts, proving how much we're ingrained to obey authority, even if we believe it to be morally or legally unjustified. The Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. From 1932 to 1972, 600 African American farmers from Alabama were selected for a U.S. Public Health Services program, receiving free health care and other benefits for their cooperation. However, they weren't told they were actually being studied. 399 of the men had syphilis, while the other 201 were used as a control group. Many of these subjects, poor and often illiterate sharecroppers, didn't even know they had the disease. Even after penicillin was developed as a cure for syphilis in 1947, the treatment was withheld from the patients, as was access to proper information or treatment. Many ultimately died of syphilis, with at least 40 women contracting it from their husbands, and nearly 20 children born with it. As a result of an information leak, the project was shut down in 1972. The University of California experiments on newborns. Leading up to a study published in the Medical Journal of Pediatrics, 113 newborn babies, no older than 3 days old, were experimented on by scientists at the University of California's Department of Pediatrics in the early 1960s. Studies conducted on the babies included a battery of bizarre and seemingly unnecessary experiments regarding blood flow and pressure. In one test, over 40 babies were placed on circumcision boards and held upside down, while doctors measured how their blood flowed to their head. In another, babies were placed ankle-deep in ice-cold water, while a catheter was inserted into their aorta in an effort to monitor their aortic pressure. Dr. Bender forces electroconvulsive therapy on children. While working as a neuropsychiatrist at New York's Bellevue Hospital, Dr. Loretta Bender decided an effective treatment for children with developmental disorders or schizophrenia was electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, previously called electroshock therapy. In 1947, Dr. Bender sent small electric currents through the brains of 98 children, all of whom were 12 or under, and one of whom was 3. Another of Dr. Bender's methods for trying to alleviate schizophrenia was to give her young patients LSD, military experiments with mustard gas during World War II. In 1943, the Navy recruited upwards of 60,000 young men for a study. Only they weren't asked to participate. They were told. Only when they arrived at the Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C., did they find the real purpose of the study, to measure the effects of mustard gas and other chemicals on humans.
They rubbed a liquid chemical on my arm and hand and had me breathe the gas without a mask on. I had no protective clothing in the gas chamber.
Locked in chambers and exposed to the deadly gas, the men involved in these experiments suffered horrible health effects, including internal and external burns. Additionally, as it was a wartime experiment, they were bound by oaths of secrecy and faced dishonorable discharge or imprisonment if they spoke of the order, the details of which were not formally declassified until 1993. Vanderbilt University's vitamin drinks. Following World War II, researchers at Vanderbilt University gave over 800 pregnant women a mysterious concoction they were told was a special vitamin drink. It was actually mixtures that contained doses of radioactive iron, as the scientists were testing its absorption rate during pregnancy. The radiation these women were exposed to was reportedly 30 times higher than normal. Around 3 or 4 children died of cancer or leukemia as a result of the experiment, and some mothers developed rashes, lost hair and teeth, and contracted various types of cancer themselves. In 1994, almost 40 years later, Vanderbilt University faced a lawsuit for the 4-year study and was forced to pay out more than $10 million in damages.